Hey, let's explore the bombshell moments and the troubling twists and turns in the Delphi murder case out on Monon Bridge in Indiana. Is Richard Allen the right guy? Or are ritual Odinists to blame for the murders of Abigail Williams and Libby? You might be surprised with my assessment on this one. Join in profiling evil. Please take a moment and hit that like and subscribe button. I think we've got it below now. And please make sure you're sharing this with your friends. Now, this is one crazy case, and it's hard to believe that it's been more than 6 years since Abigail Williams and Libby German were found murdered near the Monon Bridge out in Delphi, Indiana. Well, we're going to continue to wait while all kinds of legal wrangling and opinion positioning goes on. But right now, the big news is that the state of Indiana has to decide if the judge overstepped her bounds when she tossed murder suspect and defendant Richard Allen's defense team out of the case. Now, they're saying they were manipulated and forced to do it. And the attorney general and the judge are saying it ain't so. And another reason that I'm going to be watching this one is that Francis Gold, the judge in that case, now has a new 2-year gig as the Allen Superior Court Board of Judges chief judge. This is an administrative position, but I think it gives her a face-saving way to step away from the Delphi murder case if she doesn't want to be attached, or if the Supreme Court says she shouldn't be doing it. Remember, there was also another judge in this particular case who walked away citing concerns over safety, recused himself. Well, Judge Gold may have removed Allen's original defense team, but they are coming back in fury. The question is, why were they removed? Well, it seems to me that, if I remember it all right, that the judge felt Richard Allen deserved a better defense team. It may have even said that publicly, rather than these attorneys who allowed a friend of one of the attorneys to slip into their offices and view the photographs of the crime scene from this case. And then, to make matters worse, he publicly released the Delphi crime scene photos out into the public. He's facing charges, but holy cow, what a mess this became. Now, Richard Allen says he never wanted them gone. They say they never wanted to go, but they felt pressure from the judge. In detail, the reason for the hearing is that Judge Gold disqualified Allen's attorneys and appointed new attorneys. Now, Richard Allen, through his attorneys, filed a petition with the Indiana Supreme Court, alleging that the Judge Gold trial court decision exceeded its jurisdiction by disqualifying his attorneys, frankly, again, over his objections. Richard Allen's asking the Indiana Supreme Court to issue a writ that reinstates his previous attorneys, then setting the trial date within 70 days. He wants his speedy trial, and he wants a new judge appointed to the case. He wants Judge Gold thrown off. Now, the judge and the attorney general strongly oppose this measure, and I'm going to try to live stream this hearing, although you probably should know Richard Allen probably isn't going to be in attendance, and that live streaming should happen on the 18th. But it gives us a glimpse into the wranglings that are going on in this case, and I thought this would be really interesting because it's what brought me back to Court TV yesterday to talk about the case in detail with Vinnie Politan on closing arguments. But before I show some of those clips, I want to just retrace the steps of this case a little bit. And there's a lot that I'm going to leave out, but I'm giving a high-level view. On February 13th, 2017, 13-year-old Abigail Williams and 14-year-old Liberty German were dropped off for a day hike by a relative. Their idea was to walk around the Monon High Bridge. There was a nice trail, a historic area. Now, I'm going to take a little liberty here and blend in some facts that have come out in the case with some of this background information, and I'll back up why I call them facts. First, at about 1:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon on that same day, Richard Allen would later tell police that he too was on the Mononhai Bridge, where he saw the three girls near the bridge. He admitted parking his vehicle near the old farm building, which was later confirmed to be that same Child Protective Services building we've talked about in the past. Now, Allen indicates that he didn't have a conversation with the three girls that he saw. He only mentioned that he passed them as he made his way to Mononhai Bridge to look for fish down below. Doesn't mention that he saw Abby and Libby. Now, keep in mind that this river is about 65 feet below the bridge. So it's really important to note that Allen's admission is that he came there in 2017. He made the admission in 2017. That was long before his 2023 arrest. Well, later that day in 2017, the girls were reported missing by their families after they were unable to locate them. Dark approached, and the following morning, police conducted a massive search. Throughout the day they searched, and that afternoon, both Libby and Abby's bodies were discovered in a wood line along Deer Creek, that river under the bridge near Mononhai Bridge. Initially, police would only confirm that they found two bodies, not releasing names. The next day, authorities confirmed that the recovered bodies were in fact Abby and Libby. They also announced that they were treating the case as a homicide, and that the investigation and reports by the FBI agents that were there started letting out information, revealing that pieces of clothing were missing from one of the victims. And it appeared that the bodies had been moved and staged and manipulated. The report indicated that there were no signs of visible struggles, and that was kind of supporting the claim they made that the bodies had been moved. Now, this is really important because we can now safely assume that there are at least three crime scenes in this case. The initial contact site, which might be that man on the bridge who was captured on the victim's phone, but that place where they came together. Then we have the actual crime scene. That's the place where the murders occurred. And then finally, the disposal site, or this area where the FBI agent is describing that the bodies were discovered in what he believed was a staged crime scene. Now, we've come to know that this disposal site where the staging occurred is also the place where the victims were likely posed. It's where there were a lot of things going on, manipulating. They had items placed on them. Some people suggesting that it was a message or symbolism. In what might be pure speculation, the FBI suspected that the killer may have taken a souvenir. And I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe because that piece of clothing was missing. But some predators do take souvenirs. But, sometimes those souvenirs can be in the form of a photograph or even a memory. But in my opinion, the biggest takeaway on that day, the bombshell, the biggest thing that was released was the fact that police recovered Libby's mobile phone. And on that phone, she'd captured video and audio of the likely killer. That person that we've seen wearing that now famous brown hat and dark blue jacket. Now, during the days that followed, the community held their vigils as the family mourned. Police continued to comb through the evidence. They had evidence which included the audio of the suspected killer saying, "down the hill." But then police released a sketch of an image that they thought their suspect looked like, wearing a jacket and a hoodie. I don't know how they came up with this other than the other girls they passed on the trail. The close-up showed a middle-aged man with a goatee and shaggy hair. And they received a boatload of tips as a result of that. But it doesn't appear like there was a whole lot of movement. Now, 2 years passed, and then police held another press conference where they released a cleaned-up piece of audio of the killer and a new sketch. But this time, the suspect was much younger, had no facial hair, and his hair was now curly. During that press release, the police said, quote, "I speak now directly to the killer, who may be in this room. We believe you are hiding in plain sight, close quote. Well, if Richard Allen is truly the killer, he was hiding in plain sight, or at least hiding at that CVS pharmacy just a few miles away where he was working. On October 26, 2022, 50-year-old Richard M. Allen was arrested for the murder of Abby and Libby. 5 years had passed, and police were confident that they had their killer and that he acted alone. But then things started getting weird with the wild stuff with Keenan and the Anthony Schott stuff. Well, as Allen sat in the White County Jail on that $20 million bond, the court appointed two public defenders, Anthony Rossi and Andrew Baldwin, to represent him. Allen pled not guilty. Now, the original judge in the case, Judge Diener, recused himself over safety concerns, if you remember. Another big bombshell. And like we're seeing over and again nowadays, the defense argued that there was just way too much publicity on this case. Too many YouTubers, too many podcasts, too much media. And this case, in their opinion, needed to be held elsewhere. When the probable cause affidavit was finally made public, it showed the state believed that Allen was in fact the man on the bridge and was in fact the only person who killed the girls. It also revealed some powerful pieces of evidence, namely, the police had recovered during a search that Sig Sauer model P226 handgun, that semi-automatic in Allen's home, which they matched to an unspent round that was found within 2 feet of one of the victims' bodies. Now, this became even more important when it was later revealed that one of the victims were overheard on the Libby video saying something about a gun. Now, the probable cause affidavit also kind of outlines Allen's movements, as well as witness allegations that they saw Allen on the day of the murders at the Monon High Bridge. In the end, the judge issued a gag order on everybody that was involved in the case, and by January of 2023, the judge ordered that the trial be held in nearby Carroll County instead of where they were, with the jury coming from northern Indiana, the Fort Wayne area. Now, complaining of threats and poor conditions, the defense began to argue that Allen needed to be moved to a different location rather than sitting in Westville Correctional Facility, that place where they said he was treated worse than inmates and where Odinists were making his life miserable, forcing him to admit to something he never did. Now remember, Allen had never been convicted of anything. He was just being held in jail, and they say he was being treated worse than the inmates. Be interesting to know what that means. By June of 2023, things intensified as Allen County Judge Francis Gull released 118 court documents that were related to this murder case. The documents provided deeper insight into the state's theory about how Abby and Libby died. Then another bombshell dropped when 13 News revealed that prosecutors were alleging that Allen had actually admitted to the murders while talking to his wife on the phone from a jailhouse recorded line. They said he admitted to the murders several times until his wife abruptly ended the call by hanging up. Now, Allen's defense attorneys did the only thing I think they could have done at that moment. They claimed that they had serious concerns about Allen's physical and mental health, remarking that Allen was eating his paperwork. He was refusing to eat other jail food, and he would often go days on end without sleeping at all. In all, they were pointing to the fact that Allen was deteriorating in this court setting. I wondered, could it be because the weight of what was happening and that he'd finally been caught was starting to come down on top of him? Interesting, and I'd like your comments down below. But in the end, the judge ruled that she believed that Allen was actually being treated more favorably than other inmates in the Westville Correctional Center. But then the next bombshell landed. That's when Allen's attorney revealed that they felt that the victims were actually ritualistically murdered, and that there was a group of Odinists, including organized Odin rings within the jail and the area, who were responsible. They accused correctional workers of being in on this cultic behavior. Now, I want you to know that I was incredibly skeptical of these allegations, which included allegations that the correctional officers were wearing these Odin patches on their uniforms. In fact, I talked about it on Court TV, and I want you to just watch this segment from last night.
To get some insight here. Joining me tonight from Pensacola, Florida, private investigator Lauren Vellucci. In Little Rock, Arkansas, an expert in Odinism, practicing heathen, and president and CEO of the Troth, the largest international organization of heathenry. Lauren Crow is back with us. And in Salt Lake City, Utah, retired police commander, religious cult expert, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, and author of the book, you need to read it, Deceived, an investigation into the Zion Society cult. Mike King is with us. Great to see everyone tonight. Mike King, listen closely, because now we're going to talk about some of the specific allegations here involving 3 people, and we're only giving them letters. We're not naming names, but we're giving them a letter. So person A from Logansport, Indiana, the son was dating Abby, the son of person A. Person A would visit person B in Delphi to practice Satru Odinist rituals associated with the Vinlander gang. Person B, Logansport, Indiana. Home is 3.1 miles from the closest entry point of the murder scene, holds as a true Odinist religious ceremonies at his home. Again, these are the allegations by the defense via the investigation done by the state. Person C from Rushville, Indiana, Vinlander and Odinite, friends with person A, person B, and a 4th person, person D. Recruits members for the Vinlander gang. Drove up to Delphi around Valentine's Day in 2017 to see his Vinlander buddies. When he drove back from Delphi, he had blood along the side of his car. Okay. Now, let me put this all together. Oh, we've got person D and E. I'm sorry, there's 2 more people. Person D, also Rushville, Indiana, linked to person A through Facebook, told his sisters he was involved in the murders, and said he was part of a gang. Said he made horns out of sticks and placed them on Abby's head. Asked police, quote, if he could explain why his spit was on the girls, would he still be in trouble? Investigator describes him as having the mental capacity of a 7 or 8-year-old. Lied to police when told them he did not know person C. Told police he was home in Rushville on the day of the murders. And finally, person E told police he was with person D in Muncie, Indiana, visiting a friend in the hospital on the day of the murders. Told police person D was communicating inappropriately with underage girls on the internet. All right, Mike King. What is
Thanks
this?
For the hardball.
Yeah, but what is this? You've got all these, you've got specific people, all of this, plus the scene. What level of credibility would you give to this defense theme, which is really a result of part of the state's own investigation?
Yeah, I think it's going to boil down to the difference between possibilities and probabilities. And I go back to just some simple things as you were going through each of those. Number one, the prosecution is going to have to answer those questions of whether they looked at those people and if they excluded them or included them or didn't look at them at all. That's going to be a major thing that they've got to resolve and convince a jury of. Number two is that there are facts to this case that don't seem to get talked about at this point. Things like witnesses along the Monon High Bridge Trail that say, I saw one man. I saw 4 girls, but I saw one man. Not this group of men that we're hearing about that are coming forward. You have to consider the fact that whether we like it or not, some people live such mundane lives that being able to claim involvement in something that is so high profile gives them legacy of some sort. And it's a really wacky thing, but we've seen it in many serial crimes where offenders that weren't responsible for the crime stepped up and said, I did that. So I think each one of these is going to have to be piece by piece dissected and either included or excluded in what is really probable. And then take everything that we've seen, the staging that occurred at the scene, the physical assault that these girls endured, and match it physically against the behavioral evidence. And as we're looking at this imagery here, I mean, I've seen cases where images like this in satanic crimes have been there. For Abby on the left, something symbolic of more Christian or Christianity. On the right, more of Lucifer and the devil. It's not uncommon at all for somebody who goes through a horrendous event like this to spend a long time with the victims, exploring and trying new things, changing clothes, posing them in different ways to fit whatever this goofy fantasy is that they've got going on in their mind.
All right.
Well, as you might guess, I was shocked when it came to light that 2 officers did in fact have patches and some things that could be misconstrued as Odinist. Perhaps maybe even accurately construed as Odinist. But regardless, it sounds like they were unauthorized because they were quickly ordered to remove those patches by their superior officers, which they did. Those same officers also put out depositions later where they said they absolutely were not Odinists. But this opened the door for the investigation and, most importantly, the search warrant to come into question. The defense successfully pushed this through. So the real question in my mind is, will the defense be successful in somehow linking this and keeping that weapon that was recovered in the search warrant out of court? The same weapon that was positively identified to match the unspent bullet that was found next to the bodies at the crime scene. If so, it would be a major blow to the prosecution. But this is something really important. Along the way, the defense gained some really powerful ground. The public started questioning the integrity of this investigation. Well, as I appeared on Court TV last night with Vinnie Politan to talk about the case, we also covered another interesting angle that we're going to watch right here.
Wait, let me ask you, Mike King, though, when this allegation was first made, we're like, no way. Not like on your uniform, like, but they were. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Well, I mean, on this show, I humbly said how wrong I was, Vinny. I could not believe that any organization would allow that on an official duty uniform, something outside of what the government patches should be. Is it possible? Again, I guess it is. I have literally been in police departments in every reach of this world in the last 20 years in my career, and I've never seen an Odin patch on somebody's uniform. I've never seen it on a first responder. It doesn't mean they're not there, but to me, it was absolutely inappropriate that it was there in the first place, and I was shocked when we learned on this show that it actually was true.
Well, in the end, I still have a lot of confidence in the state's evidence and the way that they've laid out their case. Now, there are some big old warts on this case that the prosecution's going to have to resolve. But here are a couple things to think about. Like it or not, Richard Allen was on the Monon High Bridge Trail at the same time Libby and Abby were there. Like it or not, Richard Allen had a firearm that was recovered in the search of his home, and that it was positively ballistically matched to that unspent bullet that was found less than 2 feet from the victims of this horrendous crime. Like it or not, Richard Allen resembles the bridge guy, as recovered on the victim's phone and kind of those 2 sketch artist renderings. But remember, the victim's phone where one of the girls mentions the word a gun. And like it or not, Richard Allen is recorded in those jailhouse interviews confessing to his wife that he murdered Abigail Williams and Libby German. I think the state has a really powerful case, but the emotion of this case is going to be what puts the case in jeopardy, in my opinion. Is this jury going to believe the state's case, or are they going to lean toward the defense team argument that Richard Allen's only a pawn in this Odinistic organized murder of 2 young girls. I hope you'll take a moment, put your comments down below, and I want to thank you for subscribing to Profiling Evil. Please give us a thumbs up and consider sharing us with all your friends. And remember that you need to check out Profiling Evil's website. And don't forget to check out Profiling Evil's choir practice on the first Monday of every single month. I think you're going to be glad that you did. Remember that you can find Profiling Evil on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course here on YouTube. And make sure you're subscribing to Profiling Evil's audio podcasts. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform. Hey, and if you're down in Southeast Asia, check out Mapping Evil with Mike King. I think you'd really enjoy that one too. Hey folks, thanks, and we'll see you soon at the next crime scene.